I do like Pops. I like Pops, honestly. Like, Rail is mom.
Okay.
It's only one mom. Rail's mom. And then this, whatever anybody else does in their household, I support whatever you want to do in your household. But in my household, I like Pops.
Brittney Griner has always taken on the male role in her personal life, yet she's been quick to shut down any talk about her identity. But now, a leaked clip from Stephen A. Smith has critics saying it's the smoking gun. And when you throw in her alleged slur toward Caitlin Clark, this might just be the final blow to her career. Let's break it down. The setup, a media giant's credibility crisis. Griner's name has been entangled in controversy for months, but this new video might be the tipping point. The clip allegedly shows her bare-chested playing basketball, and many online are claiming it confirms long-running gender rumors.
Right here.
But before we dive deeper into the 2025 controversy, we need to look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about one video. It's about the woman behind the headlines. Standing 6'9", with a voice that's often mocked online, Brittney Griner has always been under a different kind of spotlight. From dominating high school courts in Houston to becoming one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball, her rise has been anything but ordinary. To understand why this leaked clip hit so hard, and why Stephen A. Smith getting involved makes it worse, you have to know where Griner came from, how she built her name, and why her identity has been a lightning rod from the start. Griner burst onto the national scene during her high school years in Houston, Texas, when a dunking video went viral on YouTube, back when going viral actually meant something significant. From her own words in a 2025 interview with Cam Newton.
Page of the Houston Chronicle on the newspaper, that's how I knew like I was doing something when I made that newspaper. Like that's what let me know, okay, I'm doing something right.
But Griner's path to stardom was far from smooth. Growing up in a household with a father who was a Vietnam veteran and law enforcement officer, she learned structure and discipline early. However, she also faced significant personal struggles that she kept hidden from her family for years.
So, grew up in the house. It was me and my sister in the house. My brother and my older sister, they were older out the house already. Me, my mom, my sister, and my dad. My dad worked. He was law enforcement, Marines, Vietnam, 68, 69. Went into law enforcement basically his whole life. So very stern, very much on time, very much structured with him.
This military structure and discipline would serve Griner well, but it also meant she learned early to keep her struggles internal. The pressures of being different, of not fitting into conventional molds, began weighing on her from a young age. What most people didn't realize was that behind the dominant basketball player was a young person struggling with acceptance and identity. Griner revealed the depth of her childhood struggles.
Like I was getting picked on, you know, voice a little bit different. I mean, I had girls walking up to me talking about just touching my whole chest, like, look, like she don't have a chest, like she a boy and all this stuff. Like I was going through that. Like I went through some really tough times. Parents had no idea. I'm internalizing all this. Like I would write, I would journal, and then I would burn it in the backyard because I didn't want nobody to see it, because I didn't want to talk about it with them.
The pain in her voice when recounting these experiences is palpable. This wasn't just typical teenage angst. This was deep psychological trauma that she was processing entirely alone. The fact that her parents, despite being loving and supportive, had no idea what she was going through speaks to how well she had learned to mask her pain. She even revealed darker struggles.
Went through some little dark times, self-harm a little bit. When I was a kid, parents had no idea. They didn't find out about it until I wrote my first book, honestly. That's when my moms and dad found out about all that.
This internal struggle would follow Griner throughout her career, manifesting in various ways that would later make her a target for critics and conspiracy theorists alike. The bullying she faced for her appearance, her deep voice, and her non-conforming gender presentation would become ammunition for those seeking to attack her credibility and humanity. Griner's college career at Baylor was nothing short of spectacular. She became the only NCAA player to achieve 2,000 points and 500 blocks, a record that stands to this day. But even then, controversy followed her. She was arrested with her then-fiancé Glory Johnson in 2015 on charges of assault and disorderly conduct, an incident that resulted in suspensions and required domestic violence counseling. The transition to professional basketball brought new heights of success, but also new levels of scrutiny. As a #1 draft pick in 2013, Griner entered the WNBA with enormous expectations. She didn't disappoint on the court, becoming a multiple-time All-Star and helping lead the Phoenix Mercury to a championship in 2014. But it was her life off the court that continued to generate headlines. Her decision to not stand for the national anthem during the social justice protests following George Floyd's murder made her a target for conservative criticism. This act of protest, which she she viewed as exercising her constitutional right as an American would later be weaponized against her when she found herself in the most dire circumstances imaginable. As she explained in her interview,
it's my job as an American to protest. That's my right. Hell, it's in the Constitution. Like, so I think I'm being more American by taking a knee for the flag, you know, not standing up, other teams not being out there. You know, we're doing our right as Americans, and I think it's people saying that I'm un-American. What? 4th of July, Veterans Day, biggest holidays in my household growing up, because we support our troops.
The complexity of Griner's public persona, a decorated athlete, an advocate for social justice, a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and someone who had faced significant personal struggles, made her a perfect target for those looking to exploit divisive narratives. This background is essential to understanding why Stephen A. Smith's eventual mistake would prove so damaging. But the real turning point in Griner's public story came in February 2022, when she was detained in Russia while traveling to play for her overseas team. The circumstances of her arrest, carrying less than a gram of cannabis oil for which she had a medical prescription in Arizona, seemed almost trivial. But in the context of escalating tensions between the United States and Russia over the invasion of Ukraine, Griner became a geopolitical pawn. Griner herself described the moment her life changed.
On my way back overseas, had my little Valentine's Day, had rushed that, getting done with COVID, getting over that. Getting back to my team, about to make this run for EuroLeague and Russian League. Go through the airport, made it through New York, got to Moscow, made it through the first checkpoint, and now I'm going to my domestic changeover so I can get to Ekaterinburg. They asked me, I'm going through security, they asked me to go through, put my bag on the thing. I'm like, all right, cool, throw my stuff on there, go through. They tell me to open it up, cartridge. Found a THC cartridge in my bag.
What followed was a nightmare that lasted 10 months. Griner found herself imprisoned in conditions that she would later describe as inhumane, becoming the center of a prisoner exchange negotiation that would ultimately see her traded for Victor Bout, a Russian arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. The conditions she described were horrifying.
It's feces, urine over everything. I have to take a shirt. I found a little rough piece, a little sharp piece of metal so I could cut it. So I ripped it into a couple of different pieces. So I had the piece that I used to wipe my body with the sink water. And then I had a piece that I used to clean myself. And that's just what I had for first few days.
The prisoner exchange that brought Griner home on December 8, 2022, was controversial from the start. Critics argued that trading a basketball player for an international arms dealer was an unequal exchange, particularly given that other Americans, including former Marine Paul Whelan, remained detained. This criticism would follow Griner long after her return, with some questioning whether she was worth the price paid for her freedom. As discussed on Joe Rogan's podcast,
he only has one, no two, no three problems. His first problem is he is white. Second problem is he is a man. Third problem, he is a heterosexual. Yet here Griner beats him in every aspect. American voters were given a choice. A hero who suffered while serving his fatherland. A medal-covered hero who suffered during his service to his fatherland, the United States, or a black lesbian hooked on drugs.
The psychological impact of her detention was severe. Griner returned to the United States struggling with PTSD, weight gain, and the challenge of rebuilding her basketball career while processing trauma that few could understand. She was candid about her struggles.
I was starving myself, on game days, because I was trying to lose weight any way I could, because I just hated looking in the mirror. It was just bad. I wouldn't eat before the game, after the game. Everybody thought I was eating, I wasn't. It was I felt I just didn't feel like myself. My normal day-to-day was different.
This was prior to you going to prison.
This is once I got back from prison.
This vulnerable state made Griner an even more attractive target for those seeking to exploit her story for political or personal gain. The combination of her controversial past, her high-profile detention and release, and her ongoing struggles with public perception created a perfect storm that would eventually collide with one of sports media's biggest personalities. Enter Stephen A. Smith, the bombastic, opinionated, and undeniably talented sports commentator who has built an empire on hot takes and passionate debates. Smith's rise to prominence has been meteoric, transforming from a newspaper writer to one of the most recognizable faces in sports media. His show First Take has become appointment television for sports fans, and his recent contract extension made him one of the highest-paid personalities in the industry. But with great power comes great responsibility, and Smith's massive platform means that his words carry enormous weight. When he speaks, millions listen, and when he makes a mistake, the consequences can be far-reaching. The incident, when misinformation meets massive platforms. The date was June 6, 2025, and Stephen A. Smith was appearing on the Valuetainment podcast, hosted by Patrick Bet-David. What started as a routine interview about sports and current events would quickly devolve into one of the most damaging moments in Smith's career, and a devastating blow to Brittney Griner's already fragile public image. The conversation had been flowing normally when the topic turned to Griner and her experiences since returning from Russian detention. It was then that Smith made a decision that would haunt him. He chose to quote what he believed was a legitimate statement from Griner, criticizing American sports fans and their lack of support for the WNBA. The quote that Smith referenced came from an Instagram account called The Sports Memory, a satirical account known for creating fake quotes and humorous sports content. But Smith, despite his years of experience and presumably robust fact-checking resources, didn't verify the source. He took the bait completely. Respectfully, Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free back in America, on home soil, would not have too much to complain about, Smith declared with his characteristic conviction, using the fabricated quote as a launching pad for his criticism of Griner's supposed ingratitude. What made Smith's amplification of this fake quote particularly devastating was how it reignited the gender-based conspiracy theories that had tormented Griner throughout her career. The fabricated statement provided fresh ammunition for those who had spent years questioning her biological sex, with social media exploding with renewed attacks on her deep voice, physical appearance, and gender identity. The attacks on her appearance had been relentless since childhood, as she revealed,
Like, I was getting picked on, voice a little bit different. I mean, I had girls walking up to me talking about just touching my whole chest, like, look, like she don't have a chest, like she a boy and all this stuff.
The fake quote became a catalyst for conspiracy theorists to question not just her patriotism, but her very existence as a woman. Comment sections filled with cruel speculation about her gender, with users claiming her ungrateful attitude was proof that she was really a man who didn't deserve to be rescued. The psychological damage from these childhood attacks was severe, as she described,
Went through some little dark times, self-harm a little bit. When I was a kid, parents had no idea. They didn't find out about it until I wrote my first book, honestly. That's when my moms and dad found out about all that.
Now, decades later, the same cruel attacks that had driven her to self-harm as a child were being amplified by one of the biggest platforms in sports media, based on a completely fabricated quote. The irony was staggering. Here was Smith, one of the most prominent voices in sports media, with access to unlimited resources and a team of researchers, falling victim to a parody Instagram account that literally had memory in its name. This wasn't even the first time Smith had been fooled by fake social media accounts. He had previously quoted the parody account NBA Centel without verification. But the gender-based conspiracy theories that exploded in response weren't new. They had been festering for years. Social media users began sharing old clips of Griner speaking, analyzing her voice patterns, and claiming they were proof of their conspiracy theories. The fake quote had given them permission to unleash years of suppressed transphobic hatred. Griner's own words about processing her trauma and keeping secrets showed the depth of her childhood struggles.
Like, I would write, I would journal, and then I would burn it in the backyard because I didn't want nobody to see it, because I didn't want to talk about it with them.
The fact that she had been forced to hide her pain and trauma as a child, burning her journals to keep her struggles secret, made the public attacks even more cruel. Now her most private childhood pain was being weaponized against her on a global scale. But the context made this mistake exponentially more damaging. Smith's recent $100 million contract extension had positioned him as ESPN's marquee talent, and his words carried the weight of that institutional authority. When Stephen A. Smith spoke, people listened, and they believed. The fabricated quote suggested that Griner Griner had criticized American sports fans for their lack of support, painting her as ungrateful for her freedom and dismissive of the very people who had advocated for her return. In reality, Griner had said no such thing. The quote was a complete fabrication designed to trigger exactly the kind of outrage that Smith would go on to express. What made this particularly insidious was how the fake quote played into existing narratives about Griner, not just her supposed lack of patriotism, but the persistent conspiracy theories about her gender. The combination created a perfect storm where her critics could attack both her character and her identity simultaneously. The cruel irony was that Griner came from a deeply patriotic military family. As she explained,
I think it's people saying that I'm un-American. What? 4th of July, Veterans Day, biggest holidays in my household growing up, because we support our troops.
Yet the fake quote allowed her critics to paint her as ungrateful, while simultaneously questioning whether she was even really a woman deserving of rescue efforts. Her description of her structured military household showed the values she was raised with.
Dad worked, he was law enforcement, Marines, Vietnam, 68, 69, went into law enforcement basically his whole life. So very stern, very much on time, very much structured with him.
This was someone raised in a disciplined military family that valued service and patriotism. Yet conspiracy theorists were using the fake quote as evidence that she was both ungrateful and somehow not even a real woman. Social media erupted immediately following Smith's comments. The combination of Smith's massive platform and the inflammatory nature of the content created a perfect storm of misinformation. Within hours, the fake quote was being shared thousands of times, with many people adding their own commentary and outrage. The gender-based attacks reached new levels of cruelty. Users shared side-by-side photos comparing Griner's appearance to male athletes, analyzed her voice patterns in interviews, and created memes questioning her biological sex. The fake quote had given them permission to unleash years of suppressed hatred and transphobia. The timing couldn't have been worse for Griner. She was still adjusting to her new team, the Atlanta Dream, after spending 11 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury. She was dealing with performance scrutiny, having been snubbed from the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game for the first time since 2021, averaging 10.3 points and 5.8 rebounds while trying to rebuild her career post-detention. More importantly, Griner was still processing the psychological trauma of her Russian imprisonment. She had been open about her struggles with PTSD, weight gain, and the challenge of feeling safe in public spaces. The last thing she needed was a renewed wave of public hatred based on words she had never spoken. But that's exactly what she got, amplified by the gender-based conspiracy theories that had haunted her since childhood. The fake quote gave ammunition to every critic who had ever questioned not just her patriotism, but her very identity as a woman. This wasn't just a media mistake. It was a systematic failure that exposed the vulnerabilities of our information ecosystem. The combination of a prominent platform, fake content designed to trigger outrage, gender-based conspiracy theories, and the lack of adequate verification processes had created a perfect storm that destroyed reputations and spread hatred based on complete fabrications. The aftermath, careers in crisis and lessons unlearned. The aftermath of Stephen A. Smith's misinformation catastrophe would prove to be even more damaging than the initial incident itself. What started as a single podcast appearance had morphed into a multi-week nightmare that exposed the fragility of public reputation in the digital age and the devastating consequences when powerful platforms spread false information. In the days following Smith's appearance on the Valuetainment podcast, the fake quote continued to spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Despite multiple fact-checking organizations and media outlets identifying the quote as fabricated, the damage had already been done. The toxic combination of Smith's credibility and the inflammatory nature of the content had created a beast that seemed impossible to contain. The most insidious aspect was how these attacks intensified after her Russian imprisonment. Critics began claiming that Russia had somehow exposed her true gender, or that her prisoner exchange was suspicious because of her identity. These theories, while completely baseless, gained traction among those already predisposed to believe conspiracy theories. When discussing her relationship with her son and gender roles,
I do like Pops. I like Pops, honestly. Like, Rail is mom.
Okay.
It's only one mom. Rail's mom. And this, whatever anybody else does in their household, I support whatever you want to do in your household. But in my household, I'll just like I like Pops.
This simple, loving explanation of her family dynamic was twisted by conspiracy theorists as proof of their false claims, showing how any authentic moment could be weaponized against her. Stephen A. Smith's fake quote controversy provided these gender-based attackers with a renewed platform and legitimacy. The combination of his massive audience and their existing hatred created a perfect storm of harassment that threatened to destroy everything Griner had built. What made the situation even more infuriating for Griner and her supporters was the complete silence from both Smith and ESPN. Despite facing mounting criticism and clear evidence that the quote was fake, neither party issued a public correction, retraction, or apology. This silence allowed the misinformation to continue circulating, with many people never learning that the entire controversy was based on a lie. The institutional failure was staggering. ESPN, one of the most prominent sports media organizations in the world, had allowed one of its highest-paid personalities to spread misinformation without consequence. The network's failure to address the situation sent a clear message about their priorities. Protecting their star talent was more important than correcting the record or protecting the victim of their misinformation. For Griner, the psychological impact was devastating. She had already been dealing with the trauma of her Russian imprisonment and the challenges of rebuilding her career. Now she faced a new wave of hatred and criticism based on words she had never spoken. The conspiracy theories that had always surrounded her, particularly regarding her gender identity, gained new momentum as critics used the fake controversy to question her character and patriotism. Stephen A. Smith had previously supported Griner during her detention, as shown in his comments about her situation where he said,
If anybody at all has a perfectly logical explanation for needing to step away from basketball to address their mental health, after what she endured, it is Brittney Griner. She was imprisoned. I don't care what reason there was, talking about whatever, I don't know what the hell she had.
This made his later amplification of fake quotes even more painful and confusing for those who had seen him as an ally during her darkest hour. The broader implications of the incident extended far beyond just Smith and Griner. It highlighted fundamental problems with how information flows in our digital ecosystem. The fact that a satirical Instagram account could successfully manipulate one of the most prominent figures in sports media revealed the vulnerability of even supposedly sophisticated media operations to misinformation. The incident wasn't Smith's first encounter with fake social media accounts. He had previously been fooled by parody accounts like NBA Centel, yet neither he nor ESPN had implemented adequate safeguards to prevent future occurrences. This pattern suggested a systemic problem rather than a one-off mistake. The human cost of the misinformation campaign was immense. Griner found herself once again facing questions about her patriotism, her worthiness for rescue, and her character. The fake quote played into every negative stereotype that her critics had promoted, giving them new ammunition to attack her with. In her first press conference after returning from Russia, Griner had expressed gratitude and a desire to move forward, saying,
First off, thank y'all for covering me and all the exposure that you gave me, my family, to get me home. I really appreciate it. That coverage was much needed.
This genuine gratitude made Smith's later amplification of fake quotes, suggesting she was ungrateful, all the more cruel and ironic. The psychological warfare aspect of the incident was also significant. The fake quote wasn't just random misinformation. It was strategically crafted to hit Griner where she was most vulnerable. It played into existing narratives about her supposed lack of patriotism and ingratitude, making it more likely to be believed and shared by those already predisposed to criticize her. The depth of Griner's trauma from her detention was evident in her detailed account, where she described the moment of her darkest thoughts.
Thinking about my wife, like I know she ain't gonna give up, trying to get me back. My dad, my mom, I can only imagine what they was going through. Cause I mean, I hit some times where I was just like, man, bump this. Like I don't know if I'm gonna get through this. Like I can't do this. Like this is just, it's too much.
For someone who had endured such trauma to then face renewed attacks based on fabricated quotes was particularly cruel. The long-term impact on both Smith's and Griner's careers remained to be seen, but the immediate damage was clear. Smith's credibility as a journalist had been severely undermined, while Griner faced renewed attacks and harassment based on words she had never spoken. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.